Choosing Home by ginnyrules27, Chapter 50. Before I get started, guys, if I sound a bit funny at times, I'm sorry, I'm recovering from a nasty cold. Quinn sighed as she sat on the bank of the enchanted lake, watching the others enjoy their time in the sun. Sammy and Harriet were off playing a game of chicken with Freddie and Allie, with Harriet on Sammy's shoulders and Allie on Freddie's. CJ, Ryan, Sarah and Hattie were goofing off around, splashing each other. Celia and Hattie were sitting on the platform, keeping Sarah company, while CJ and Ryan were in the water. Sarah had begun to climb out of her shell, especially with the ability to have more allies around her own age here in Oregon, as opposed to on the Isle. Plus, Hattie and Sarah had at least been friendly back on the Isle. It'd make sense that they'd stay that way in Oregon. Though, when Hattie finally got friendly with Sarah was a mystery to some of the older VKs. Meanwhile, Uma, Harry, Ben and Mal were sunning themselves on the platform, each of them every so often picking their heads up to make sure the younger kids were safe, or that the others hadn't killed themselves. It wasn't as if she was being excluded. On the contrary, it had been Harriet who had invited her to come along when they ran into each other in the hallway as Harriet was getting ready. Freddie and Sammy had invited her to swim about a dozen times since they had arrived. King Ben was always inquiring if she needed something to drink, and Mal's dog, Estelle, had gently tugged on her towel as if to get Quinn to join in the fun, only to go swimming in the water when Quinn wouldn't join him. The last thing I want to do is bring down the mood, or to remind Mal I used to be a caster, she thought with a small sigh. Things had gotten better with Mal, or at the very least the purple-haired future queen wasn't actively going around and turning everyone against her, like Quinn had feared she would after the whole fiasco with King Ben's ring. It definitely helped that King Ben had been more vocal about trusting her after she came to him with a list of VKs she wanted to bring off the Isle. All properly vetted by Evie and Ginny before being presented, of course, and Brendan had been there every step of the way. Quinn really wished he was here now, but he had a family emergency to deal with. Going back to the ring debacle, in Quinn's defence, a lifetime of living on the Isle wasn't about to just go away overnight, and she'd been the J of the casters. She was a lot more equipped at smooth-talking since she was a royal of the Isle, so getting the merchants and shopkeepers to just give her what she wanted was a lot easier than it would be for a non-royal. No one could beat a compliment and a flutter of one's eyelashes. Well, no one except for J. That boy was such a smooth talker sometimes, he could sell oysters to a walrus if he wanted. Hard to believe Jay's off at college, and DeVille's apparently looking at vet schools to apply to for after he graduates, considering everyone on the Isle knew he was pretty much terrified of any sort of animal, but dogs especially. Quinn thought as she pulled her towel closer to her. By the way, if you guys can hear something in the background, that's my dog snoring. Evie had graciously made her a beautiful two-piece swimsuit for events like these, and had she not been busy with running her own company, and then meeting with Ginny about hers, she'd likely have been at the lake with Quinn. But Quinn... She wished Evie had made it to a one-piece. Every time her hand brushed her side, she could still feel the raised skin of the scar left by Audrey's dagger piercing her flesh. If she went to swim with the others, Quinn knew such a scar would garner questions, which would only increase Mal's distrust of her. Plus, Quinn couldn't swim, so there was that. This seat taken? Mal's voice broke through Quinn's thoughts, and Quinn looked up to see Mal standing over her, gesturing to a spot on the ground next to her. Oh, no, go ahead, Quinn told her. Honestly, it was surprising that Quinn hadn't noticed her get up and come over. But then again, VKs were always light on their feet. I mean, you're going to be Queen of Oregon soon, so technically it's your seat anyway. Mal shook her head as she sat down, the sun glinting off the ring she wore around her neck. Quinn couldn't remember seeing Mal wearing that when they were on the Isle together. It must have been a gift after she arrived in Oregon. The wedding's not for another few years at least, so it's safe to say that soon isn't the right word. Right. Evie mentioned that, Quinn said. You and King Ben? You're waiting until you're 20? That's right, Mal nodded. It was one of the stipulations of my dad giving his permission to Ben to propose, that we wait until we were both 20. Quinn nodded to show that she understood, but truthfully, she didn't know why Mal was telling her any of this. Mal hated her for stealing from King Ben, and Quinn knew that even if Mal was cordial when they were in public together, never mind the fact that Quinn had returned the ring after all. Why are you doing this? Quinn asked her, her voice soft. What do you mean? Mal asked. Quinn looked over at her. Why are you over here? You haven't exactly made it a secret that you distrust me. I'm just lucky I haven't earned a smoke bomb a day by the way Evie used to get back when we all lived on the Isle. Mal couldn't help the small sigh that escaped her lips. Look, Quinn. You know, I wasn't going to trust you right off the bat. We were in rival gangs after all. Maybe the rivalry wasn't as bad as it was between my gang and the Angels, but it was there. And I probably didn't endear myself my first day when I swiped from King Ben and flirted with him. Quinn muttered, shaking her head. Mal nodded. Look, I know flings for food were a thing on the Isle. I also know that I was lucky in that I was one of the few girls who escaped such a fate, between Dad's restaurant and being in the rats. But I'm not going to be apologetic for being protective of Ben, especially after everything that happened with Freddie. Gotcha. Quinn sighed. The fact that Mal really hadn't answered her question about why she was there in the first place hadn't escaped Quinn's notice. But Quinn had been raised as a royal, even if the royal lessons had slid to the background as the lessons the Isle taught came to the forefront. Survival trumped decorum, after all. Evie talked to me about you, Mal said after a minute, her voice breaking into the silence. Back when you were in the process of finding the brick and mortar of your jewelry store. She asked me to give you a chance, like the one I gave to her. Quinn looked over at Mal with shock evident on her face. Evie? She asked you to do that? Yeah, Mal nodded, and leaned back and closed her eyes, as if basking in the sun. I'll admit, Quinn, you were the caster I could see myself liking back on the Isle. After all, in the rare instances the casters and rats faced off against each other, you were the one who seemed to look out for the younger members, especially Haddie and Celia if they ever wound up in the crossfire. Of course I did, Quinn nodded. They're just kids after all, or preteens now. Zevon and Maddie might not have cared about stuff like that, but I was used to being the overlooked one. Just because we were on the Isle didn't mean we had to be completely mad after all. And here I thought you Wonderlandians liked a bit of madness, Mal said, shaking her head. Quinn couldn't help but smile a little as she heard that. Yes, Mal's tone had been a bit dry, but it was almost gently teasing in a way. It was the screams from the lake that broke their peaceful mood, as both Mal and Quinn's heads shot up. Where's Sarah? Quinn asked as they raced to the platform. Mal looked around and saw that the blonde was right. The younger girl was in fact missing. How did Ben and the others miss that? Quinn thought as the others scrambled to their feet. I don't know, Ryan said, twisting in the water as he looked for the young girl. She fell off the platform, but I thought, almost all the rats can swim after all. She's not a rat though, Ryan! Quinn shouted and jumped into the lake. However, just as Shura couldn't swim, neither could Quinn. Her mother was never honestly thinking it was necessary to learn, and in all honesty, Zevon or Maddie probably hoped she would drown. Mal looked over at Uma, biting her lip in worry, as neither Quinn nor Sura resurfaced. After all, Mal still could not swim, and all honesty was completely fine with that fact. But she still wasn't going to let people die if she could help it. You've got the power over water! Bring them up now! On it, Mal! Uma nodded as she stood up, her shell glowing bright. However, before Uma had a chance to work her magic, both Ben and Harry had dove into the water, Harry diving off Sammy's shoulders to assist in the search. You want me to bring him up anyway? Uma asked Mal, because I think our boyfriends have that covered. Never thought you'd be referring to Harry as your boyfriend, Mal teased.
Meh, when in Borodon.
Mal chuckled slightly, but focused her attention on the water once more. Thankfully, it wasn't too much longer before Ben and Harry resurfaced, followed closely by Harriet. Ben and Harry had Quinn between them, while Harriet was holding Sura. "Come on, set her down," Mal ordered, laying out the towels as she saw that Quinn wasn't moving. She may not have been buddy-buddy with the blonde, but she knew her father would not want to judge a child's soul. "Hey, Dad!" Mal thought as Ben quickly started CPR on Quinn. Surprisingly and thankfully, Sura was just fine, despite having gone under before Quinn did. Sure, she was soaking wet, terrified and coughing, but otherwise fine. At least she wasn't unconscious like Quinn was.
Yes, Molly?
"Quinn, Queen of Hearts' daughter, she's not about to be judged by you, is she?"
Well, that's a rather ominous question. Did you do something, Mal?
"No, we're all at the Enchanted Lake, and one of the younger girls fell in and couldn't swim, so Quinn dove in."
Oh, she did a Harry.
"A what?"
A Harry. It's when you go to save someone you care about, no matter what the cost to you. Since I'm assuming Quinn can't swim either.
I mean, no, she can't, but how?
First off, I'm your father. I know everything. Second, I was there that day when Harry drove after you, when Freddy pushed you into the cove.
When did you?
You kept the door open when you were informing your minions of that little fact, Mal. Why do you think I banned the angels from my restaurant despite being in neutral territory?
That makes so much more sense now that I think about it. I never did see angels in your restaurant after I was 9.
Yep. And to answer your question, Quinn's life thread is nowhere near close to being cut. I just talked to the Fates. They're quite annoyed. Had the new scissors out and everything.
Did you threaten the Fates?
Nope. They don't really get threatened. They respond better to flattery. But I didn't do that either. Someone brought her back. I'm assuming you.
Mal couldn't help but smile a little as she looked over at Quinn to see her sitting back up, Ben resting a hand on her back to help keep her steady. No, it was Ben.
Sunspot's mortal, though.
CPR's a thing, Dad. Probably why you don't have as many mortals coming down to the underworld for their beloveds.
Funny, Mal. Really funny.
Oh, really? I thought so. You okay, Quinn? Sura asked, her soft voice pulling Mal out of her thoughts. Quinn nodded. I think I should be asking you that. What happened? I got up to get something to drink, Sura said, but the platform was wet from all the splashing, and I fell off the platform, out of view of the others. We noticed she wasn't on the platform a couple of minutes after, though, Sura said as she and Ryan hopped out of the lake, the others right behind her. And that's when you called for us. Mal nodded, chuckling, as Estelle joined their group on the platform and shook out his phone. "Gods, Estelle!" Uma shook her head. Sura smiled a little as Estelle trotted over to her, his right head licking her cheek. "Quinn floated me closer to the top," she said, her voice no higher than a whisper. "I think she kicked me to get me closer to the top before Captain Harriet got me."
"I think we should get these two checked out," Ben said as he stood up once he was convinced that Quinn was okay. Walking over to Mal, he smiled as she kissed his cheek. "Are you okay?" "Just fine." Ben nodded and leaned down to whisper in Mal's ear. "I guess you could say Quinn just pulled a Mal, forgetting she can't swim to save someone else."
Mal shook her head, but a smile pulled at her lips. "Okay, universe, I get it. Besides, I can't see anyone who is truly evil jumping into the lake to save someone else. Maybe you, Sloward, as the leader of the casters, but that's about it." "How'd you get that?" Hattie asked, pointing at Quinn's scar. "The royal kids of the Isle don't really interact with blades."
"Hattie, I don't think—"
"No, it's fine, Your Highness," Quinn said softly, but bit her lip as she looked at Mal. "I, spoke up against the casters joining forces with the angels back on the Isle, back when Freddy was alive."
"Can we kill him again?" Omar muttered.
I'll talk to Dad. Have him add a punishment to Freddy's eternal torment.
Mal nodded.
Quinn blinked in shock. She'd honestly expected Mal and Uma to say that she deserved it.
What? Shocked we're angry on your behalf?
Omar asked. Well, yes. Mal chuckled. Quinn, we're the leaders of the rats. Do you really think we'd be jumping for joy at the thought of our rival gangs teaming up? On that note, why did we ever team up with the casters to destroy Freddy?
Do it, Molly. Detergent boy,
Harry told her. Ah, right, Mal nodded. Ben sighed and shook his head.
You're still using Akio's nickname for her?
Hey, it stuck, Harry said with a grin.
Now, I think you said something about getting Sora and Quinn checked out to make sure they're okay.
Right, Ben nodded.
Quinn, you think you're okay to walk? If not, Harry and I can carry you.
I'm fine, Quinn quickly said. She didn't want to give Mal another reason to potentially hate her. Future Queen and all, with the ability to boot Quinn back to the Isle should she choose.
Okay, Ben said hesitantly before looking at Mal. Can we take your car? I don't think my scooter's a good idea.
Which is why I said we should just take the limo, Ben.
And if I did that, we'd be leaving you guys stranded. Oh, I completely forgot you can teleport.
Exactly. Mal chuckled as she walked over to her bag and tossed Ben the keys. Her car was a present Ben had given her, so Mal would be able to have her own personal car and be able to go out without being mobbed. Granted, the faded purple would have given it away, but regardless, it was nice to make people work with their brains. Still, she hadn't had a chance to learn to drive said car, but that was okay. Ali had her license, so she had driven the rest of the group while Mal and Ben rode on his scooter. Ben tossed the keys, and he, Sora, and Harry and Quinn made their way to the car, Harriet gently kissing Sammy on the cheek before picking Sora up, just in case the young girl was injured too. Well, that happened, Celia sighed. Guess Lake Day is over.
You'd be right, Oma nodded before looking at Mal. You've got that look on your face. You've got an idea?
Mal nodded. Didn't Rapunzel mention she had a line of anti-aging cream?
Random non sequitur win, Mal, but yes, Mal nodded.
Mal rolled her eyes. I wonder if we could get her to make a cream that would make that scar become reduced at the very least. You know, peace offering.
That's not a bad idea,
Freddy said, having joined the group, Ali by her side with her arm looped through hers.
I bet we could have Ginny ask, considering she's practically family to Rapunzel, from what Oma's told me.
Mal nodded, the idea forming in her head. The trust might be shaky and could decimate at any time, but it was there. Quinn could have looked out for herself, could have let Sora stay underwater, but she didn't. She pulled, as her dad had said, a Harry, and Harry was one of the most loyal people Mal knew, after all. Well then, she said with a small smile, let's go ask her. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Again, I'm sorry for background noises and if my throat wasn't as good as normal. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.